Most people underestimate one of the most powerful forces shaping their life: the people they spend time with. It does not feel obvious. There is no single moment where everything changes because of your circle. Instead, it happens slowly, quietly, through conversations, habits, and shared perspectives that begin to influence the way you think and act. Every day, you are absorbing something from the people around you: their mindset, their standards, their way of approaching life. You may not notice it immediately, but over time, these influences begin to shape your decisions. The way you react to challenges, the way you handle opportunities, the way you see yourself, all of it is affected by your environment. If you are surrounded by people who settle, you begin to accept less. If you are surrounded by people who avoid effort, you start to lower your own standards. If negativity becomes normal in your circle, it slowly becomes normal in your mind. And once something becomes normal, you stop questioning it. This is how limitation spreads. Not through force, but through familiarity. You adjust to what you see every day. You align with what feels common. And without realizing it, your potential begins to shrink to match your environment. But the same principle works in the opposite direction. When you are around people who think differently, who act with intention, who push themselves beyond comfort, something shifts. You begin to see new possibilities. Your standards rise. Your mindset expands. You start questioning your limits instead of accepting them. The right environment does not just support you. It challenges you. It forces you to grow. It makes staying the same uncomfortable. And that discomfort is what drives progress. The truth is, your circle is not neutral. It is either moving you forward or holding you back. Every interaction either adds value or drains it. Every influence either strengthens your mindset or weakens it. Yet most people never stop to evaluate this. They stay in familiar environments because it feels easy, because it avoids conflict, because change requires effort. But comfort often comes at the cost of growth. This audiobook is about bringing awareness to something that is already shaping your life. It is about understanding the impact of your environment and taking control of it. Because once you see it clearly, you can no longer ignore it. You begin to choose differently. You become more intentional about who you spend time with. You start protecting your energy, your focus, and your direction. Because in the end, success is not built in isolation. It is built in an environment that supports it. And the people around you are a part of that environment. The question is not whether they influence you. The question is how much. Chapter 1: You become what you are around. Most people believe their thoughts are entirely their own. They assume their habits, decisions, and mindset are created independently. But in reality, much of what you think and do is shaped by your environment. The people around you influence you in ways that are subtle, consistent, and often invisible. Every day you are exposed to conversations, behaviors, and attitudes. You hear how people talk about their problems, how they react to challenges, how they approach opportunities. Over time, this exposure begins to affect you. Not in a dramatic way, but gradually. You start adopting similar patterns without even realizing it. This happens because the human mind is naturally adaptive. It adjusts to what is familiar. When you are surrounded by certain behaviors repeatedly, they begin to feel normal. And once something feels normal, you stop questioning it. You accept it as the standard. If the people around you constantly complain, you may find yourself complaining more often. If they avoid responsibility, you may begin to do the same. If they settle for less, your expectations may quietly lower. This is not because you lack ambition, but because your environment is shaping your perception of what is acceptable. Your surroundings determine your standards. What you see regularly becomes your reference point. If no one around you is striving for more, pushing limits, or improving themselves, it becomes harder for you to do so. Not because it is impossible, but because it feels unfamiliar. Habits are also influenced in the same way. Many of the routines you follow are not created intentionally. They are picked up through observation. You mirror behaviors without thinking about it. The way you spend your time, the way you respond to stress, even the way you speak. These patterns are often reflections of your environment. This is why your circle has such a powerful impact on your future. It is not just about who you spend time with. It is about what they represent. Their mindset, their habits, their standards, all of these become part of your daily exposure. Over time, this exposure shapes your identity. You begin to align with the people around you. You think like them, act like them, and eventually, you achieve results similar to theirs. This is why people in the same environment often end up with similar outcomes. But this influence is not always negative. It depends on the environment. When you are surrounded by people who are disciplined, focused, and growth-oriented, the same process works in your favor. You begin to adopt their habits. You start thinking differently. You raise your standards. Being around the right people creates a positive pressure. It challenges you. It makes you aware of your own potential. When others are working hard, improving, and pushing forward, it becomes difficult to remain stagnant. You are either inspired to grow or uncomfortable staying the same. This is where transformation begins. Not through force but through influence. The environment starts to pull you in a new direction. It expands your thinking. It changes what you believe is possible. And over time, it reshapes your actions. One of the most important realizations is that influence does not require intention. People do not have to actively try to change you. Their presence alone is enough. Their habits, their mindset, their way of living, all of it becomes part of your environment. And your mind absorbs it naturally. This is why awareness is critical. You need to observe not just what people say but how they live. What are their habits? What are their priorities? What do they focus on? Because these are the things that will influence you the most. Once you become aware of this, you begin to see your environment differently. You start evaluating the people around you. Not with judgment, but with clarity. Are they helping you grow or are they keeping you in the same place? Are they raising your standards or lowering them? This awareness gives you control. It allows you to make intentional decisions about your environment. You begin to choose where you spend your time, who you listen to, and what influences you allow into your life. It is important to understand that you do not need to change everything at once. Small adjustments can create significant impact. Spending more time with people who inspire growth, reducing exposure to negative influences, and being mindful of your environment, all of these steps contribute to change. Over time, these changes begin to reflect in your behavior. Your habits improve. Your mindset shifts. Your actions become more aligned with your goals. And gradually, your results begin to change. Because in the end, you cannot consistently outperform your environment. You can resist it for a while, but over time, it will influence you. That is why choosing the right environment is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. You become what you are around. Not instantly, but inevitably. And once you understand that, you begin to choose your circle with intention, knowing that it is shaping your future every single day. Chapter 2. Recognize who is draining you. Not every influence in your life is obvious. Some people do not openly discourage you, criticize you, or hold you back in visible ways. Instead, their impact is subtle. It shows up in how you feel after spending time with them, in how your focus shifts, in how your energy slowly fades. This is why recognizing who is draining you is not always easy, but it is necessary. Energy is one of your most valuable resources. It affects how you think, how you act, and how you pursue your goals. When your energy is strong, you are focused, motivated, and clear. But when it is constantly drained, everything becomes harder. Even simple tasks feel heavy. Progress slows down. And over time, your momentum disappears. Some people drain your energy without intention. They may constantly complain, focus on problems, or carry a negative outlook on life. Conversations with them often revolve around what is wrong, what is unfair, or what cannot be done. At first, you may listen out of understanding or habit. But repeated exposure to this mindset begins to affect you. Negativity is contagious. When you hear it often enough, it starts to influence your own thinking. You begin to see problems more than solutions. You start doubting possibilities. Your motivation weakens not because your goals have changed, but because your environment is shaping your perspective. There are also people who drain you through lack of support. When you share your ideas, they dismiss them. When you talk about your goals, they question them. Instead of encouraging growth, they create doubt. This does not always come from bad intentions. Sometimes it comes from their own limitations or fears. But the effect is the same. Lack of support slows progress. It creates hesitation. It makes you second-guess your decisions. And over time, It can lead you to lower your ambitions just to avoid conflict or criticism. Another form of draining influence is emotional exhaustion. This happens when interactions consistently leave you feeling tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed. You may not be able to explain it clearly, but you feel it. Conversations feel heavy. Time spent together feels unproductive. And instead of feeling energized, you feel drained. This is an important signal. Your mind and body are indicating that something is not aligned. Ignoring this signal allows the pattern to continue. Recognizing it gives you the opportunity to change it. Some people also drain your focus. They create distractions, pull you into unnecessary discussions, or shift your attention away from what matters. Time that could be used productively is spent on activities or conversations that add no value. Over time, this reduces your ability to concentrate and move forward. Awareness is the first step in addressing this. You need to observe how different people affect you. Not just what they say, but how you feel after interacting with them. Do you feel motivated or drained? Focused or distracted? Supported or doubted? These questions help you identify patterns. They allow you to see clearly which influences are positive and which are not. And once you see this clearly, you can no longer ignore it. It is important to understand that recognizing draining influences is not about blaming others. It is about understanding the impact they have on you. Everyone operates based on their own experiences and mindset, but you are responsible for your environment and how it affects your life. This realization gives you control. You begin to make decisions about how much time you spend with certain people. You become more selective about the conversations you engage in. You start protecting your energy instead of allowing it to be used carelessly. This does not always mean cutting people off completely. In many cases, it simply means creating distance, limiting exposure, setting boundaries, choosing when and how you engage. These adjustments can significantly reduce the negative impact. At the same time, you begin to seek out more positive influences. People who support your growth, who challenge you in a constructive way, who bring energy instead of taking it. This shift creates balance. It replaces draining interactions with energizing ones. Over time, this change becomes noticeable. Your energy improves. Your focus becomes sharper. Your motivation increases. And you begin to move forward with greater clarity. Recognizing who is draining you is not about creating conflict. It is about creating awareness. It is about understanding that not every influence is beneficial, and not every connection supports your growth. Because in the end, your environment shapes your experience. And the people you allow into your space play a major role in that. When you become aware of who drains you, you take the first step toward protecting your energy. And once you protect your energy, you create the conditions needed to move forward. Chapter 3. The danger of staying comfortable. Comfort feels safe. Feels familiar. It feels predictable. And because of that, most people stay in it far longer than they should. They stay in environments they have outgrown, around people who no longer challenge them, and within routines that no longer move them forward. Not because they want to stay the same, but because leaving comfort requires effort, uncertainty, and change. The problem with comfort is not that it exists. The problem is when it becomes permanent. When it stops being a place to rest and starts becoming a place where growth ends. Because growth does not happen in comfort. It happens when you are pushed, when you are challenged, when you are exposed to something new. Familiar environments can quietly limit your potential. When you are surrounded by the same ideas, the same habits, and the same level of ambition, your thinking begins to settle at that level. You stop pushing yourself because there is no reason to. You stop questioning your limits because nothing around you challenges them. This is how stagnation begins. Not through failure, but through comfort. Everything feels fine on the surface. There is no urgency to change. No immediate pressure to improve. And because of that, time passes without progress. Many people confuse comfort with stability. They believe that staying in the same environment is a sign of security. But stability should support growth, not replace it. If your environment is not helping you improve, it is holding you in place. Growth requires discomfort. It requires stepping into situations where you are not the most knowledgeable, not the most experienced, not the most comfortable. It requires being challenged, being questioned, and sometimes feeling uncertain. This discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are expanding. When you are in the right environment, you will feel this kind of discomfort. You will feel pushed to improve. You will notice gaps in your skills and knowledge. You will see others operating at a higher level, and that will challenge you to rise. This kind of discomfort creates progress. But staying in comfort prevents this. It keeps you in a space where you are not required to grow, where your current level is enough. And over time, enough becomes your limit. There is also a psychological aspect to comfort. The longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to leave. You become used to the routine, the people, the environment. Change begins to feel risky. Even if you know you need to move forward, the fear of uncertainty holds you back. This is where awareness becomes important. You need to recognize when comfort is no longer serving you, when it is no longer supporting growth but preventing it. This recognition is the first step toward change. Another challenge is the influence of those around you. If your circle is also comfortable, they may resist change. Not intentionally but naturally. When you begin to grow, it can disrupt the balance of the group. And sometimes this creates subtle pressure to stay the same. You may hear comments that encourage you to slow down, to not take risks, to stay where things are easy. These influences can be powerful, especially when they come from familiar people. But it is important to understand that their comfort is not your limit. Progress requires new influences. New environments expose you to new ideas, new standards, and new ways of thinking. They challenge what you believe is possible. They expand your perspective. And this expansion is what drives growth. This does not mean abandoning everything at once. It means gradually stepping out of what is familiar and into what is challenging. It means seeking environments that push you, even if they feel uncomfortable at first. There will be moments where this feels difficult, where you question your decision, where you feel out of place. But this is part of the process. Growth always feels uncertain in the beginning. Over time, what once felt uncomfortable becomes normal. Your standards rise. Your mindset expands. And you begin to operate at a higher level. The discomfort that once challenged you becomes your new baseline. This is how progress happens. Not through sudden change, but through consistent exposure to better environments. Through willingness to leave what is easy and step into what is challenging. Because in the end, comfort does not build your future. It maintains your present. And if your present is not aligned with where you want to go, staying comfortable will only keep you there. The danger is not comfort itself. It is staying in it for too long. And once you recognize that, you begin to move. Chapter 4. Choose people who challenge you. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life is choosing to be around people who challenge you. Not people who make you feel comfortable all the time, not people who always agree with you, and not people who keep you in the same place. But people who push you to think better, act better, and become better. Growth does not happen in isolation. It happens through interaction, through exposure, through being in environments where your current level is not enough. When you are surrounded by people who challenge you, you are constantly being reminded that there is more you can do, more you can learn, and more you can become. These individuals do not challenge you to break you down. They challenge you to build you up. They point out what you are missing, not to criticize, but to help you improve. They question your thinking, not to discourage you, but to expand your perspective. This kind of challenge is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Constructive feedback is one of the most valuable things you can receive. It allows you to see what you cannot see on your own. It highlights areas where you can improve. And when it comes from the right people, it is not damaging, it is strengthening. Many people avoid this kind of environment because it feels difficult. It is easier to be around people who agree with you, who validate everything you do, and who do not question your choices. But while that may feel good in the short term, it does not lead to growth. When no one challenges you, you begin to believe that your current level is enough. You stop improving. You stop pushing yourself. And over time, this leads to stagnation. Healthy challenge creates movement. It forces you to evaluate your actions. It pushes you to improve your standards. It makes you more aware of your potential. And this awareness drives progress. Another important aspect is healthy competition. When you are around people who are striving, improving, and achieving, it creates a natural desire to do the same. You are not competing against them in a negative way, but you are inspired by their progress. This type of competition raises your performance, makes you more focused, it pushes you to put in more effort, and it helps you break through limits that you may not have challenged on your own. Strong circles operate on higher standards. The expectations are different. Effort is normal. Discipline is expected. Growth is continuous. When you are part of such an environment, you naturally begin to align with these standards. At first, this can feel overwhelming. You may feel like you are not at the same level. You may feel like you have more to learn, more to improve. But this is not a disadvantage. It is an opportunity. Being in a room where you are not the strongest is one of the best places to be. It means you have room to grow. It means you are exposed to higher levels of thinking and performance. And over time, you begin to rise to that level. This is how environments shape you. They set the standard and you adapt to it. If the standard is low, you stay low. If the standard is high, you rise. Choosing people who challenge you also requires humility. You need to be open to feedback. You need to be willing to accept that you do not know everything. You need to be ready to improve without taking everything personally. This mindset allows you to grow faster. Instead of resisting feedback, you use it. Instead of avoiding challenges, you embrace them. And this approach creates continuous improvement. It is also important to recognize the difference between constructive challenge and negativity. Not everyone who challenges you has your best interest in mind. Some may criticize without offering value. Others may bring you down instead of building you up. The key is intention. Constructive challenge comes with the purpose of improvement. It is focused on growth. It is delivered with clarity and respect. Negative criticism, on the other hand, is often rooted in judgment or insecurity. Learning to distinguish between the two helps you choose the right influences. It allows you to surround yourself with people who genuinely contribute to your growth. Over time, being around the right people begins to change you. Your thinking improves. Your habits become stronger. Your standards rise. And your results begin to reflect these changes. Because in the end, you cannot grow beyond the level of your environment for long. You either adapt to it or remain limited by it. Choosing people who challenge you is not about making life harder. It is about making growth possible. And when you place yourself in an environment that pushes you forward, you begin to move in a direction that you may never have reached on your own. Chapter 5. Stop seeking approval from the wrong people. One of the most limiting habits you can develop is seeking approval from people who do not align with your growth. It often begins subtly. You share your ideas, your plans, your goals, and you look for validation. You want to be understood. You want to feel supported. And there is nothing wrong with that. But the problem arises when the people you seek approval from are not capable of seeing your vision. Not everyone will understand your direction. Not everyone will agree with your choices. And most importantly, not everyone is qualified to judge your path. When you depend on approval from the wrong people, you place your decisions in the hands of those who may not have the experience, mindset, or perspective to guide you. This creates hesitation. Instead of moving forward with clarity, you begin to second-guess yourself. You delay decisions. You adjust your goals to fit others' expectations. And over time, you lose connection with your own judgment. Approval becomes a form of control. Without realizing it, you start shaping your actions based on how others will react. You avoid risks because you fear criticism. You hold back ideas because you expect doubt. And gradually, your growth slows down. The most dangerous part is that this often feels normal. Seeking approval is a natural human tendency. It is connected to acceptance and belonging. But when it becomes excessive, it limits your independence. It makes you dependent on external validation instead of internal clarity. People who operate from a limited mindset often project their own fears onto you. When they see you trying something new, they may question it. Not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar to them. They may discourage you not out of malice, but out of their own limitations. If you rely on their approval, you absorb those limitations. You begin to doubt what you once believed in. You reduce your ambitions to match their comfort. And this is how potential gets restricted. Self-trust is what breaks this pattern. It is the ability to make decisions based on your own understanding, your own goals, and your own direction. It does not mean ignoring all feedback. It means choosing whose feedback matters. When you develop self-trust, you stop needing constant validation. You evaluate decisions based on logic, not approval. You move forward even when others do not fully understand your path. And this independence creates strength. There is also a shift in focus that needs to happen. Instead of asking, "What will others think?" you begin to ask, "Is this aligned with my goals?" This question brings clarity. It removes unnecessary noise. And it helps you make decisions that support your growth. Confidence grows when you stop seeking approval. Not because others suddenly agree with you, but because you no longer depend on their agreement. You trust your process. You accept that not everyone will understand. And you move forward anyway. This does not mean you isolate yourself or reject all opinions. It means you become selective. You choose to listen to people who have experience, who understand your goals, and who genuinely want to see you grow. Their feedback adds value. It helps you improve without limiting your direction. On the other hand, opinions that come from negativity, fear, or lack of understanding become less influential. You hear them, but you do not allow them to control your decisions. Another important aspect is emotional independence. When you rely on approval, your emotional state becomes dependent on others. If they agree, you feel confident. If they disagree, you feel uncertain. This creates instability. Emotional independence allows you to remain steady. Your confidence does not rise or fall based on others' opinions. It is built on your own understanding and experience. And this stability allows you to take consistent action. There will always be moments where you feel the need for validation. Times when decisions feel uncertain. But the key is not to eliminate this feeling completely. It is to manage it. To recognize when it is influencing your decisions and to bring your focus back to your goals. Over time, this practice becomes stronger. You rely less on external approval and more on internal clarity. You make decisions faster. You move forward with confidence. And you create progress without constant hesitation. Because in the end, your life is not meant to be shaped by everyone's opinion. It is meant to be directed by your choices. And those choices should come from understanding, not approval. When you stop seeking validation from the wrong people, you take back control of your direction. And once you have that control, you are no longer limited by what others think, you are guided by what you know. Chapter 6. Build a circle that supports growth. Once you become aware of how much your environment influences you, the next step is intentional creation. It is not enough to simply avoid negative influences. You need to actively build a circle that supports your growth. Because growth does not happen by accident. It happens in environments that are designed for it. A supportive circle is not just about positivity. It is about alignment. It is about being around people who are moving in a direction similar to yours, who value progress, discipline, and improvement. These are individuals who understand the importance of growth and actively work toward it. When you are surrounded by such people, something begins to change. Your mindset shifts. You become more focused. You start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. This is not because your abilities suddenly improve, but because your environment begins to support your progress. Supportive people do not just encourage you with words. They reinforce your actions. They respect your goals. They understand the effort required to grow, and they do not pull you away from it. Instead of distracting you, they help you stay aligned. This kind of environment creates motivation naturally. You do not need constant reminders to stay disciplined. The environment itself keeps you on track. When others around you are working, improving, and moving forward, it becomes easier for you to do the same. Shared goals strengthen connections. When you are around people who are focused on growth, conversations change. Instead of discussing problems repeatedly, you discuss solutions. Instead of focusing on limitations, you explore possibilities. This shift in conversation alone can have a powerful impact on your thinking. Collaboration is another key benefit of a strong circle. When people with similar goals come together, they can support each other in ways that are not possible alone. They share knowledge, experiences, and insights. They help each other avoid mistakes and identify opportunities. This does not mean everyone in your circle needs to be at the same level. In fact, a strong circle often includes people at different stages. Some may be ahead of you, offering guidance and perspective. Others may be at a similar level, growing alongside you. and some may look to you for support. This balance creates a dynamic environment where everyone benefits. Building such a circle requires intention. It does not happen automatically. You need to seek out people who align with your values and goals. This may require stepping out of your current environment and exploring new spaces. It may require effort, time, and patience. You may not find the right people immediately, but consistency in your efforts will lead you to them. Whether through learning environments, professional networks, or shared interests, opportunities to connect with growth-oriented individuals exist. The key is to be open and proactive. It is also important to contribute to the circle. A strong environment is not built by taking alone. It requires giving. Sharing your knowledge, supporting others, and adding value to the group strengthens the connection. It creates mutual respect and trust. As you build this circle, you will begin to notice a change in your behavior. Your habits improve. Your discipline becomes stronger. Your focus increases. This is not because you are forcing yourself, but because the environment supports these changes. There will still be challenges. Growth is not always easy. There will be moments of doubt, difficulty, and uncertainty. But in a strong circle, you are not facing these alone. You have support, perspective, and encouragement. This makes a significant difference. Another important aspect is accountability. In a supportive environment, you are more likely to stay committed to your goals. Not because you are being forced, but because you are surrounded by people who are also committed. This creates a sense of responsibility both to yourself and to the group. Over time, this environment creates momentum. Progress becomes consistent. Small improvements add up. And gradually, your results begin to reflect your efforts. It is important to remember that building the right circle is an ongoing process. As you grow, your environment may need to evolve. You may need to seek new influences, new challenges, and new perspectives. This is part of the journey. Because in the end, your circle is not just about who you spend time with. It is about what that time creates. It is about whether it moves you forward or keeps you in place. When you build a circle that supports growth, you create an environment where progress becomes natural. And in that environment, you do not just grow, you accelerate. Chapter 7: Set boundaries with toxic individuals. Not everyone in your life will support your growth. Some will drain your energy, distract your focus, and pull you away from the direction you are trying to move in. These influences are often referred to as toxic, not because the people themselves are inherently bad, but because the impact they have on your life is negative and limiting. Recognizing this is important, but what matters even more is how you respond to it. This is where boundaries become essential. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling your access. They define what you allow into your time, your energy, and your space. Without boundaries, you become available to everything, every distraction, every negative conversation, every unnecessary demand. And over time, this availability weakens your ability to focus and grow. Many people struggle with setting boundaries because they associate it with conflict. They fear that saying no will damage relationships, create tension, or make them seem difficult. So instead, they continue saying yes. Yes to conversations that drain them. Yes to situations that add no value. Yes to people who do not respect their time or direction. But every unnecessary yes comes at a cost. Time is limited. Energy is limited. And every time you give these resources away without intention, you reduce what you have available for yourself. You delay your progress. You weaken your focus. And gradually you begin to feel overwhelmed. Setting boundaries is not about being harsh. It is about being clear. It is about understanding what aligns with your goals and what does not, and making decisions based on that clarity. Saying no is one of the most powerful tools you have. It protects your time. It protects your energy. And it creates space for what truly matters. But to use it effectively, you need to remove the emotional resistance attached to it. You do not need to justify every decision. You do not need to explain your goals to everyone. And you do not need to make others comfortable at the cost of your own growth. Distance is another form of boundary. Not every situation requires confrontation. Sometimes, the most effective way to reduce negative influence is simply to reduce exposure. Spend less time in environments that drain you. Limit interactions that disrupt your focus. Choose where you place your attention. This does not mean completely removing people from your life in every case. It means adjusting the level of access they have to you. Some relationships may remain, but with clearer limits. Others may require more distance. The key is to make these decisions based on their impact on your life. Boundaries also create respect. When you are clear about what you accept and what you do not, people begin to understand how to interact with you. They recognize your priorities. And over time, this clarity shapes the way others treat you. Without boundaries, people may unintentionally take advantage of your time and energy. Not out of malice, but because there are no limits. When limits are established, behavior adjusts. There is also an internal aspect to boundaries. It is not just about others. It is about your own discipline. You need to respect the boundaries you set. Saying no once is not enough if you continue to allow exceptions. Consistency is what makes boundaries effective. There will be moments where this feels uncomfortable. You may feel guilty. You may question your decisions. But this discomfort is temporary. What matters is the long-term effect. Over time, you will notice a change. Your time becomes more focused. Your energy becomes more stable. Your environment becomes more aligned with your goals. And this creates the conditions needed for growth. It is also important to understand that not everyone will react positively to your boundaries. Some may resist the change. They may question it or try to push against it. But this reaction often reveals the importance of those boundaries. People who respect your growth will understand. Those who do not may struggle with it. And this clarity helps you identify which relationships align with your direction. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is a recognition that your time and energy are valuable. It is a decision to protect your focus and your future. Because in the end, your environment is shaped not just by who is around you, but by what you allow. And when you set clear boundaries, you take control of that environment. You create space for growth. You protect what matters. And you move forward with intention. Chapter 8. Upgrade your environment intentionally. Once you understand how deeply your environment shapes your thinking, habits, and results, the next step is no longer passive awareness. It is intentional change. Growth does not happen by accident. It happens when you deliberately place yourself in environments that demand more from you, expose you to better standards, and expand your perspective. Most people stay in the same environment for too long. Not because it is the best place for them, but because it is familiar. It feels comfortable, predictable, and easy to navigate. But familiarity often limits growth. When you see the same things, hear the same ideas, and interact with the same level of thinking every day, your progress naturally slows down. Upgrading your environment means changing what you are exposed to. It means surrounding yourself with new ideas, new challenges, and new influences that push you forward. This does not always require a complete life change. It begins with small, intentional decisions. It can start with the spaces you choose to spend time in, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, the people you interact with. Each of these elements contributes to your environment, and each one can be adjusted. Exposure is powerful. When you are consistently exposed to higher standards, your thinking begins to adjust. What once felt difficult starts to feel possible. What once seemed out of reach becomes something you can work toward. This shift happens gradually, but its impact is significant. Learning from others is one of the fastest ways to grow. When you place yourself in environments where people are achieving, improving, and progressing, you gain access to their experiences. You observe their habits, their mindset, their approach to challenges. And this learning shortens your path. Instead of figuring everything out alone, you begin to understand what works. You avoid common mistakes. You adopt effective strategies. And this accelerates your development. Upgrading your environment also requires effort. It may involve stepping into unfamiliar situations, attending new events, joining new groups, or exploring new opportunities. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You may feel out of place. You may feel like you are not at the same level. But this discomfort is part of the process. It is a sign that you are moving beyond your current limits. Over time, what once felt unfamiliar becomes normal, and your confidence begins to grow. Another important aspect is intentional selection. Not every new environment will support your growth. You need to evaluate where you are placing yourself. Are these influences aligned with your goals? Do they challenge you in a constructive way? Do they encourage improvement? Being intentional means choosing environments that add value. It means avoiding spaces that distract, limit, or drain you. This level of awareness ensures that your changes lead to progress. There is also a compounding effect to this process. As your environment improves, your thinking improves. As your thinking improves, your decisions improve. And as your decisions improve, your results begin to change. These results then open doors to even better environments. This creates a cycle of growth. Each step leads to the next, and over time your entire life begins to shift. It is important to understand that upgrading your environment is not a one-time action. It is an ongoing process. As you grow, your needs change. What once challenged you may no longer be enough. This requires continuous adjustment. You need to keep seeking new influences, new challenges, and new opportunities. Staying in a growth-oriented environment ensures that your progress does not slow down. Another key factor is contribution. As you enter new environments, you are not just there to receive. You are there to add value. Sharing your ideas, supporting others, and participating actively strengthens your position. It builds connections and creates mutual growth. Over time, you begin to notice a shift in your identity. You no longer feel limited by your past environment. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable of more. Your confidence increases, your ambition expands, and your actions begin to reflect this change. Because in the end, your environment is one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. It influences what you believe, what you attempt, and what you achieve. Upgrading it intentionally gives you control over that influence. It allows you to design a space that supports your goals instead of limiting them. And when you place yourself in the right environment, growth is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that happens naturally. Chapter 9. Become the person others want in their circle. While it is important to choose the right people around you, there is another side to this equation that is often overlooked. The kind of people you attract is directly influenced by who you are. If you want to be surrounded by disciplined, focused, and growth-oriented individuals, you must become someone who reflects those qualities. Many people focus only on finding the right circle, but they do not focus enough on becoming the right person for that circle. They expect to be included in environments that operate at a higher level, without developing the habits, mindset, and discipline required to belong there. But strong circles are not built on chance. They are built on value. Your value is determined by what you bring to the table. Your mindset, your work ethic, your consistency, your attitude toward growth, these are the things that define your presence. When you operate with discipline and clarity, people who value those traits begin to notice. Strong individuals are naturally selective about their environment. They protect their time and energy. They choose to be around people who add value, not just consume it. This means that if you want to be part of such an environment, you must contribute, not just participate. Contribution can take many forms. It can be your ideas, your perspective, your ability to support others, or your willingness to grow. You do not need to be at the highest level to add value. But you do need to show effort, consistency, and intention. Discipline is one of the most attractive qualities in any circle. When you are consistent in your actions, when you follow through on your commitments, when you take your goals seriously, it reflects in your behavior. Others begin to see you as reliable, focused, and driven. Focus is equally important. In a world full of distractions, being able to stay aligned with your goals sets you apart. It shows that you are not easily influenced by temporary trends or external noise. It demonstrates clarity, which is a valuable trait in any environment. Strong habits are the foundation of this transformation. Your daily actions define who you are. The way you manage your time, the way you approach challenges, the way you handle responsibilities, all of these contribute to your identity. Over time, these habits build your reputation. Reputation matters more than people realize. It is how others perceive you based on your actions. And in environments where growth is the focus, reputation plays a key role in determining who you connect with. When you consistently show up with discipline, focus, and intention, you begin to attract similar individuals. Not because you are trying to impress them, but because you naturally align with their standards. This alignment creates connection. Personal growth also improves your relationships. As you develop yourself, your communication improves. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your ability to understand and contribute increases. This makes your interactions more meaningful. It is also important to remain humble during this process. Growth does not mean becoming rigid or closed off. It means being open to learning, adapting, and improving continuously. People who are committed to growth value humility because it allows progress. Another key aspect is consistency over time. Becoming the right person is not about short bursts of effort. It is about maintaining your standards consistently. This builds trust. It shows that your actions are not temporary but part of who you are. There will be moments where this feels challenging, where maintaining discipline requires effort, where staying focused feels difficult. But these moments are part of the process. They are what strengthen your habits and reinforce your identity. As you continue, you will notice a shift. The people around you begin to change. Conversations become more meaningful. Opportunities become more aligned with your goals. And your environment begins to reflect your growth. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. You are no longer trying to fit into the right circle. You are becoming someone who naturally belongs there. Because in the end, your circle is not just about who you choose. It is also about who chooses you. And when you become someone who operates with discipline, clarity, and purpose, you attract people who do the same. That is when your environment truly begins to support your growth. Not because you found it, but because you became it. Chapter 10. Protect your circle like your future depends on it. Once you build the right circle, the work is not over. In many ways, it is just beginning. Because creating a strong environment is one thing, but maintaining it is another. And if you are not careful, the same factors that once limited you can slowly find their way back in. This is why protecting your circle is just as important as building it. Your circle directly impacts your long-term success. The people around you influence your thinking, your habits, and your decisions on a daily basis. Over time, these small influences compound into significant outcomes. This means that any change in your environment, positive or negative, will eventually reflect in your results. Many people make progress, improve their environment, and then become careless. They stop being selective. They allow old influences to return. They become less intentional about who they spend time with. And slowly, without realizing it, their environment begins to shift back. This is why awareness must remain constant. You need to regularly evaluate your circle. Not with judgment, but with clarity. Are the people around you still aligned with your growth? Are your interactions still adding value? Are your standards being maintained or slowly lowered? Protecting your circle means being intentional about access. Not everyone should have the same level of influence in your life. Some people may be part of your past but not part of your future. Others may need to remain at a distance to protect your focus and energy. This is not about isolation. It is about prioritization. It is about understanding that your time and attention are limited, and where you place them determines your direction. Strong relationships require effort to maintain. It is not enough to find the right people. You need to stay connected, communicate, and contribute. A strong circle is built on mutual growth, support, and respect. Maintaining this requires consistency. You also need to protect the quality of interactions within your circle. Conversations should be meaningful. They should contribute to growth, not just fill time. This does not mean every interaction must be serious, but it does mean that the overall environment should remain aligned with your goals. There will be external influences that try to disrupt this. New people, new environments, new situations. Some may bring value. Others may not. Being able to evaluate these influences quickly is important. It allows you to decide whether they should become part of your circle or remain outside it. Another important factor is boundaries within your circle. Even strong relationships need limits. Respect for time, energy, and priorities must be maintained. Without boundaries, even positive environments can become unbalanced. As you grow, your circle may need to evolve. Some relationships may strengthen. Others may naturally fade. This is part of the process. Growth changes you, and as you change, your environment must adjust. Letting go is sometimes necessary. Not because the relationship is bad, but because it no longer aligns with your direction. Holding on to everything can limit your ability to move forward. Being selective allows you to maintain focus. There is also a responsibility that comes with having a strong circle. You are not just receiving value, you are also contributing to it. Your actions, your mindset, your habits, they all influence the environment. Protecting your circle means maintaining your own standards. If you become careless, distracted, or inconsistent, it affects not just you but the people around you. This is why personal discipline remains important. It ensures that you continue to add value to your environment. Over time, a well-protected circle creates stability. It becomes a space where growth is consistent, where support is available, and where standards remain high. This stability allows you to focus on progress without being pulled in different directions. It also creates long-term success. Because when your environment is strong, your decisions improve, your habits strengthen, and your results reflect that. Many people focus on individual effort, but overlook the impact of their surroundings. They try to succeed alone while their environment pulls them back. Protecting your circle ensures that your environment supports your efforts instead of working against them. Because in the end, your future is not shaped only by what you do. It is shaped by where you are, who you are around, and what influences you allow into your life. Your circle is not just a part of your life. It is a system that shapes it. And when you protect that system, you protect your future. Your life is not built in isolation. It is shaped, influenced, and directed by the people you allow around you every single day. The conversations you have, the habits you observe, the standards you accept. Over time, these become part of you. They shape how you think, how you act, and ultimately what you become. Most people never stop to question this. They stay in familiar circles because it feels comfortable. They tolerate behaviors that drain them because it avoids conflict. They surround themselves with environments that limit them, not because they want to stay stuck, but because they never realize how much their surroundings are holding them back. But now you see it differently. You understand that your circle is not neutral. It is not something that simply exists without impact. It is either pushing you forward or pulling you back. Every influence is doing something to your mindset, your energy, and your direction. And once you see that clearly, you have a choice. You can continue in the same environment, accepting the same patterns, repeating the same results. Or you can become intentional. You can choose who you spend time with. You can set boundaries where needed. You can place yourself in environments that challenge you, support you, and push you toward growth. Because the truth is simple. You cannot consistently grow in an environment that does not support growth. You cannot build discipline around people who avoid effort. You cannot think bigger if you are surrounded by small thinking. But when you change your environment, everything begins to shift. Your standards rise. Your mindset expands. Your actions become stronger. And over time, your results begin to reflect those changes. This is not about cutting everyone off or isolating yourself. It is about being aware, being intentional, being selective. It is about understanding that your time, your energy, and your focus are valuable, and protecting them accordingly. As you move forward, remember this. The people around you will either help you build your future or slowly take you away from it. There is no middle ground. So the question is not whether your circle matters. The question is whether you are willing to choose it carefully. Will you stay where it is easy? Or will you step into an environment that forces you to grow? Because your future is not just a result of your effort. It is a result of the people you allow to influence that effort. Choose wisely.